Okay, here's a quick update on my experiments with inner door seals. So I had a lot of problems with my trying to get my doors to close right and close reliably with part of it came down to the inner door seal was just in places was impeding the door closing properly. So I wanted to figure out a better solution. So this is actually the stock inner door seal here. You can see there's across the bottom there, that's a 1/4 inch gap right here, and it's just less, the depth of the legs as they call them, or is just about just less than 1/2 inch. This is reportedly a 5/8 inch bulb, which when the door closes it compresses against this, and that's what provides the air seal. And then there's also this little flap on top, which I guess is some kind of additional seal. And in a lot of places where the door seal was, you can see where over the years or whatever, misalignment or something, the bulb had sort of given up and folded into the side. And in places it had actually folded into or leaned against the outer door seal, which is sits right about here in some places. And so it was just becoming a pain. There were a couple of spots I had where the door seal was actually leaning in towards the door. So, you know, where you go around corners and stuff like that, it was leaning like this. And then where that was happening, it was getting pinched. And the door couldn't close past it because the clearance was too tight. And so that's why, I'm guessing that's why the stock one leans out the ways, and to allow the door to clear through this gap right here, just down this side. And so that was one of the first problems I ran into, is I went to the crossover list and I looked at, I got the McMaster car website, and you can get the replacement or the crossover inner door seal there. And of course it has a 1/4 inch gap, which is this here, which goes around the edge of the fiberglass and stuff like that. It's got about the same depth, maybe just a tiny bit less, less than 1/2 inch than the last one did. And it's got this 5/8 inch bulb on it, which is, you know, the right size, but it's positioned right bang on top of the edge seal. So when the door comes in, it compresses the bulb, and you can see that it can stick over the side quite a bit. It doesn't lean in like the stock one does, like this. It actually can. The other thing too is when the door was coming down, before the door had hit the top of the bulb, which is where the seal would take place, the headliner and other stuff and the door edge was clipping the bulb like that, catching the bulb like that, and then the door wouldn't close because it was dragging in, you know, an extra 1/8 of an inch or 1/4 of an inch worth of crap. And so that didn't work at all. That was from the crossover list. And now I did use the outer door seal from the crossover list, and it worked fine, but it doesn't have to grip an edge, and the sizing of it isn't quite as sensitive. Okay, then I came across this stuff on the Trip Lock website. So it's quite a robust grip, and this one is not a 1/4 of an inch, but it's 5/16 of an inch, which is just a 1/16 of an inch bigger than a 1/4 of an inch. You can see on this one it has one little tooth there for gripping once you put it on the edge, and this one has a 3/8 inch bulb. And so while this had a really good fit for the edge where it was trying to grab around the vinyl and grab around other things onto the fiberglass, in many places the bulb just wasn't, while the door would pass the bulb on this edge, right? Because you can see the door can just go past there, and it's not going to pinch or anything. But what would happen is it didn't seal the gap, right? It wasn't tall enough. The door would come in, and there would still be 1/8 of an inch or a 1/4 of an inch still remaining of gap. So, what that means is you'd have to have an edge seal that had, and this one has 21/32 leg depth, which is this distance here, so it's well over 1/2 inch. You would need, you know, this kind of leg depth, but you'd also need like 3/4 of an inch or a 1/2 inch plus of bulb height but it would have to be a very narrow, sort of thin bulb to work, so that the door could still get past it again. And that, unfortunately, that seemed to be a very rare combination to come across. There were some third-party trims that looked a little bit like the stock one, where it leans to one side, but they were kind of custom made, and you had to buy like 250 foot at a time and all that kind of stuff. So what I decided to do was, I then found this stuff, which is, it doesn't have a bulb on it, you'll see, and it turns out that the bulb is pretty much what makes it really expensive, or a lot more expensive. This is 5/16 inch across the gap. This particular one has 2 teeth. I don't know if that's a variant that, I didn't see that on the Trimlock site, but this particular one had it, which is great. It has the 21/32 depths, so it's well over ½ an inch deep. And it's got just a pebbled, I think they call that a pebbled texture, when you see it looking like that, a black pebbled texture for the top. So the plan was that, let me just go to the car. The plan was, rather than put the bulb on the seal, to actually put the bulb on the door. And so here you can see, this is that same trim I just showed you. It's 21/32 deep, so you can see it sits over the edge nicely. This is my rear whatever panel, and it's been recovered in leather, and you can see the trim sits over it, because the leather adds a bit of width to it. It sits over that pretty nicely. There's no distortion, and it is pretty. Let's see if I can. Where's the edge? Oh, that's the edge there. See, I can just about pull it off. Oh, there we go. So managed to get a little bit off. There's some more leather underneath it. Now these things are Rapesco, R-A-P-E-S-C-O. They're size 60 stainless steel clips, and what I've done, there's a special. They're like you know, super duper paper clips, right? And they actually hang on pretty damn good. Can't pull them off too easily. Of course, they're hanging on to leather and shit there, but so they're hanging on pretty good. And then this stuff just kind of clips over the top of them, and kind of, you can see it. Probably, I don't know, can you? No, there's not much of it showing. And so you got a stainless steel clip underneath instead of the standard ones or some kind of spring steel. And they usually sit along this bottom edge here for the most part, and they hold on the vinyl, and they also have some teeth that also go back and grab this edge trim, and so you can get rid of all those, and you don't get any of the rust marks, you don't get any of the tears on the vinyl that attaches to the side of the carpet, or tears into the leather, or whatever other surface you got. So you can take this apart and put it back together again and not have damaged the materials in the process, which is kind of nice. So to complement that, so that when you close the door, there's still like a 1/4 inch to a ½ inch gap, air gap. And so what I've done is I've kind of experimented with a couple of things, but here's one you can see. There it is right there. So this bulb is what I'm playing with. The biggest gap was at the bottom of the door. So this edge here, this edge here is what contacts that door edge. And so the new door edge will come up and press against this bulb. And one of the things I saw online was how nowadays they used to be, they tried to crush the bulb, you know, kind of make dang sure there was a seal, but now you just have to compress it by 20%. So it just has to pretty much touch this thing, and then you're going to get a seal. And then I've been experimenting with other sort of, you can't see it too well here, it's black, but there's a black rubber seal that runs along here. It's EPDM, which is a nice temperature resistant rubber. I got this stuff in Advanced Auto Parts. It's not sticking terribly well. This stuff actually came from the McMaster car website. It's an EPDM bulb, and I'm going to go replace the stuff I got from the auto parts store with some more of this. This has gripped onto the stainless steel extremely well, and it's done a good job. So I'm going to go with that. So the idea is that the door seal, on the the bit that you see when you open the door, this bit just here, that essentially just becomes a passive seal. It holds in the headliner and various other pieces of trim, and then as you close the door, essentially what happens is that bulb comes down on top of, or the bulb or the other EPDM rubber comes down on top of the door seal, and so you just minimize the risk of tearing the bulb or catching the bulb, that sort of thing. So what you do have to do, or what you can do, is you put the edge seal on first, and then from inside you close it, get inside the car, you get inside the car, you close the door, and then you use a ruler to slot into the gap between the door and the edge seal here, and you can measure to the edge of the edge seal, because you can't really see the other edge, but you can see this edge, and then you can figure out what the remaining air gap is, and then the idea is to get the right seal, this stuff, get the right size bulb to close the air gap that you have in different parts of the car. And so that's how it's been working, and I really like the look of the edge trim now. It doesn't, you can see one of the other things that used to happen, maybe kind of see it here a bit better, not quite so well, but when the old trim, because it was 1/4 of an inch, when it went around corners like this, it had no option really but to buckle. It would either, like here, the old trim just on this outer edge, the old trim would buckle out the ways because it couldn't get around that edge. And what would happen would be the head trim and stuff would come down here, down this side, and as it was coming back up again, that it would catch on that bulge and end up getting marked and stuff. You'd see, here's the headliner here, you would see like rubber marks and stuff on the side of your headliner, which wasn't terribly nice. This is usually vinyl. I've just replaced this one with headliner, but you also, the same principle applies further in on the headliner, right around here. The other place it used to happen was at this front edge, you can kind of just about see it here. This is what the headliner is. It goes around this, probably what, pretty good size bend. And it would bulge out here because and with the old 1/4 inch clearance rather than 5/16 inch clearance, it had to bulge out to go around the corner, whereas here it doesn't have to. It sits pretty flush. It sits pretty flush, and then where it was catching was on the headliner right there, and of course it doesn't do that anymore because it doesn't bulge, and it doesn't have the bulb and stuff on top of it to make it sit funny. Okay, so that's the work I've been doing with experimenting with inner door seals for the DeLorean. And here's just a real quick, that's the McMaster car outer door seal. You can see there's a flat bit that has some adhesive on the back end of it. The bulb sits here off to one side, and the bulb also has some adhesive on the back end, so it grips pretty good. It was a heck of a lot easier than using the 3M 8008. Yeah, you can hear it clicking a little bit. But it seals pretty good, and then you have to, the trick with this is positioning it just right so that the edge of the door comes down and just rests against the bulb. But that's actually a pretty tricky one to do, because you got to do it with the door open. Then there we go. Experiments with door seals.